Hello, all you folks out there in YouTube land. We're running a lot late this week, as Kage had to deal with a dying hard drive, and the first cut of this video was lost in its entirety shortly prior to upload. So, one more round with this video, and we'll move on to an extra special guest for this week's random rant. We also need to re-download Aliens, Colonial Marines, so I'll be working to get that done in the next couple of days. I already have part of that done, so it shouldn't be too horrid. For this week's drubbing, we have a short video by a person referring to himself as the Vigilant Christian, most of which is him commenting his agreement on a video by a group known as the Fuel Project. I'll be addressing both videos simultaneously, or at least the clip that VOC decided to use. I may go back later and take a splitting maul to the screw that is the video he's commenting on, but for now I'm primarily concerned with our little friend here. I will provide a link to VOC's video, and he has a link to the other. Brilliant. Here I am, running off at the mouth again when I should be debunking the video. So rather than me rabbiting on like a squirrel with attention deficit hyperactive disorder, let's get stuck into it. Hello Mario. I'd make a joke about plumbers and princesses, but that would be untoward. I'm not here for another edition of New World Order Exposed. I'm here to see if your assertions hold up. From your YouTube moniker and the title of your video, I'd guess not, but stranger things have happened. A born-again Christian denouncing her faith on nothing more than a single piece of verifiable evidence, for example. Yes, I am speaking of someone that's been seen here on this channel, and she's rather upset about being lied to all those years.
Hey everyone, it's the Vigilant Christian Mario, and you're here for another edition of New World Order Exposed.
Hello Mario. I'd make a joke about plumbers and princesses, but that would be untoward. I'm not here for another edition of New World Order Exposed. I'm here to see if your assertions hold up. From your YouTube moniker and the title of your video, I'd guess not, but stranger things have happened. A born-again Christian denouncing her faith on nothing more than a single piece of verifiable evidence, for example. Yes, I am speaking of someone that's been seen here on this channel, and she's rather upset about being lied to all those years.
In today's video, I wanted to touch on the topic of why the Illuminati want people to believe in evolution again.
Believe in evolution again? That sentence is so full of errors that I'm not sure where to start. First, there exists no evidence beyond a conspiracy theory that stubbornly refuses to die, passed on like a bogeyman generation to generation. The next is a bit more difficult. You state that they want people to believe again, when it's a matter for debate, not belief. People debate and accept science, and believe dogma. That's the way it works. Evolution isn't a religion. It is the unifying theory of the life sciences. Evolution requires no belief, as it's every piece of evidence, good, bad, or otherwise, can be examined at the leisure of the people that are interested. Evolution isn't even really about Darwin any more than cosmology is about Kepler. Both men provided a framework that functioned well, and made clear predictions that could be tested. We use the maths provided by Newton based on Kepler's model, as modified by Einstein to determine where a given celestial object will appear at a specific date and time. Barring human error in either calculation or measurement, that object is always where expected when it's supposed to be there, with a margin for error so small as to be insignificant. If I wanted to find an extinct animal in the midpoint between two types of morphology, say water to land dwelling, I would look at when geology and evolution state they should have existed, consult the most recent information of the ages of exposed rock on the planet today, and go digging. This has, in fact, already been done at least once, in the discovery of Tiktaalik, a creature halfway between fully aquatic fish and land-dwelling amphibians.
I've done a previous video, so I'll leave the link for you to check it out if you haven't already in the description section. It's the one that I'm showing you on your screen.
You left a link to one of your previous videos in the description to support your current argument? You are aware that your lack of knowledge on the tiny matter of academic integrity and intellectual honesty is now on display for all to see, yes.
I show how the Illuminati have an agenda to deceive the masses into believing that they are evolving, that in fact they came from primordial soup, gases, crystals that magically appeared out of nowhere after a Big Bang explosion, and then after millions and millions of years came and just created different organisms and grew until we got to what we have today in modern man. But, this begs the question, what's next?
We don't know. At the rate we're going, there may not be a next. But if there is, it'll be at least similar in most respects to what we are now. Because that's what evolution predicts. A series of small changes over significant periods of time that become large differences as the small ones accumulate. For example, the bonding of single-celled organisms into multicellular forms, which then became interdependent on one another for essential functions over countless generations. From there, cells in the cluster started to specialize to whatever job they were doing, and so on, each in response to a survival benefit or a change in environment. A cluster of cells working together to make sure everyone gets fed, for example, would be harder for single-celled creatures to eat, and therefore a benefit that is not exceeded by the associated costs exists. Over a number of divisions, the component cells start to specialize and take on specific duties for the benefit of the whole. Based initially on nothing more than organic chemistry. Certain molecules fare better in some circumstances than others, and those molecules continue. Making a self-replicating organic molecule has been accomplished in the lab, even. CDK007 made a lovely video series on abiogenesis, which I might add is not covered by evolution. Evolution has nothing to say about the origins of life, as you try to assert. It explains the diversity of life as we see it.
And ultimately, that's the Illuminati's deception. They are preparing humanity to deceive them because they are going to be offering humanity a step in evolution with transhumanism. So transhumanism is basically when man will merge with machine. Ray Kurzweil, a Google executive, has been talking about 2045 and the fact that that is when this singularity is going to occur, where humans will be faced with a choice to either evolve with machine or to be outdated. Because if we look at technological evolution in itself, it is far greater than human evolution. Technology evolves at a way more rapid rate than humans do, and we can't keep up. So ultimately, in the next couple decades, according to Ray Kurzweil, and futurists and technology specialists, if we do not merge with machine, we will be left behind in the evolutionary chain.
People have been talking about the singularity for decades, and the date offered thus far has produced it. Ray Kurzweil is a very accomplished person, and has done much for the technology sector, and will likely continue to do so. Whether or not he is correct remains to be seen. Nice name drop, as you managed to find a way to cite a known expert, but you still cannot establish a link between him and this Illuminati you speak of. Not that you're going to have a lot of luck in the next few minutes using him to forward your argument, as you haven't given us anything except an out-of-context bit of information from an advocate of transhumanism. If that word even means what you think it means, and that I sincerely doubt. As it stands, he's been wrong before, and some of his predictions were made ad hoc. Some of the longer-term predictions are pretty out there, as well. Not that he'll be alive to see them come to light, so it won't matter if he's right or not. As icing on the cake, critic John Rennie stated in the December 2010 issue of IEEE Spectrum of Mr. Kurzweil, on close examination, his clearest and most successful predictions often lack originality or profundity. And most of his predictions come with so many loopholes that they border on the unfalsifiable.
So this is what's going to happen. Humanity will be faced with this choice, and those who have been brainwashed by the Illuminati to believe this will hook themselves up electronically to the beast system and be damned forever.
Technology doesn't evolve, it advances. It sounds like I'm being pedantic here, but your choice of words conflates biological evolution with technological advancement, and that's not only not true, but exceedingly dishonest of you to try and make that connection. Machines, software and etc. are made by people as science and engineering build the knowledge to make it a reality. If study and innovation suddenly stopped, then so would technology as a necessary consequence. Humanity would then continue evolving as needed by the combination of survival traits and environmental pressures, just as it did before the humans began making tools.
So what I wanted to do in today's video here is actually play a clip here from Know Your Enemy Part 47 on evolution by the Fuel Project. I'm going to leave the link for you to check out the Fuel Project in the description section, but this is important because we need to understand that the secret societies, the Illuminati, have an agenda when it comes to evolution. So this video actually exposes that, so let's go ahead and watch it and I'll comment as we go.
Now you're going to get into the meat of your argument by letting someone else make that argument for you. That's just lovely. It's also ruinous to your claim of academic integrity, but since you decided that this was the way to do this, we can kill two birds with one stone. Never mind that the video you're about to show us is only just barely shorter than your video. We won't be getting all of this guy's argument either. Just you saying, of course, Socrates, and very clever, Socrates.
With the British Royal Society acting as the headquarters of the propaganda machine, they now needed to introduce the science itself. That science was Darwinism, or evolution. Given that the founding members of the Royal Society were Freemasons, whatever science they came up with would only be an extension of their occult doctrine.
Not even 30 seconds in, and he's pulled out the creationist canard about Darwin being the first, last, and only voice in life sciences in the last century and a half. Linnaeus was the first to categorize humans as being on the same branch as the great apes, and he was working from comparative anatomy and your bloody Bible. Plus a connection to the Freemasons, which are not established as part of the Illuminati, nor is there any evidence that Charles Darwin was a Mason at any point. His father and grandfather may have been, and if so, I expect he'll tell us all about it.
The theory of evolution is nothing less. In The Meaning of Masonry, W. Elm Wilmhurst reveals the worldview underpinning the new Masonic science. This, the evolution of man into Superman, was always the purpose of the ancient mysteries, and the real purpose of modern Masonry is not the social and charitable purposes to which so much attention.
You see, I just want to point out here that the goal of the Illuminati, these secret society members that go into these mystery schools, is to evolve into Superman, which is essentially into gods, to use the occult mysteries to transcend their lower nature into godhood.
Mr. Wilmhurst was himself a Mason, and very little is immediately available about him with the exception of the names of his books and papers. He was not a contemporary of Darwin. He was born well after the publication of On the Origins of Species. Next, what would be the next step in evolution for humanity, and what do you call it? Their assumption is that it will be something better than what we are now in some way, thus Superman. That, and the 19th and early 20th centuries were well known for emerging science and technology, and also the very nearly mainstream acceptance of the occult as we emerged from the dark ages that religion sank the Western world for the best part of 1500 years.
And that's what they're going to offer mankind. They're going to say, hey, everybody, the time for the evolution to Superman has come. Hitler wanted to do it. He was trying to create the superhuman race. And again, we have the Illuminati, crazy Hitler types in our world today who are going to present this, but in a great way. They're going to say, hey, this is evolution. Don't you know we've been evolving? This is the next step. Come along with us.
You have yet to establish that the Illuminati exists. Never mind the authority to assign properties to them. Unless you intend to imply that Adolf himself was a member. Yes, he wanted to speed up the process of evolution to his own design, but unless you can prove that he was a member, then invoking him or assigning his ambitions to any other group is irrelevant at best. Besides, your friend at the Fuel Project is talking about Freemasonry, not the Illuminati. Prove the first exists, then more than a tenuous connection to the second. I will even spot you the existence of the Freemasons, but not Fuel's characterization of the modern fraternity.
Attention is paid by the expediting of the spiritual evolution of those who aspire to perfect their own nature and transform it into a more godlike quality. And this is a definite science, a royal art, which it is possible for each of us to put into practice, whilst to join the craft for any other purpose than to study and pursue the science is to misunderstand its meaning. Later in the book, Wilmhurst reiterates this theme. Man who has sprung from earth and developed through the lower kingdoms of nature to his present rational state has yet to complete his evolution by becoming a godlike being and unifying his consciousness with the omniscient, to promote which is and always has been the sole aim and purpose of all initiation.
He's still on about Fulhurst in a single extended quote, to which he offered 2-page references. Lucky us, he mentioned the book first. As with most arguments of this sort, he provides no context for either quote and offers no corroborating evidence.
The spiritual implications of the theory of evolution are something that few people ever stop to consider, so I want to really highlight this. What was the lie from the serpent in the Garden of Eden? It was that by attainment of knowledge by our own efforts, we would become as gods. Now what does evolution teach? It teaches that we are constantly evolving onwards and upwards over time, and if we are constantly evolving throughout time, where is the end goal?
Evolution doesn't look like that, and you presume that the Bible you all like to cheer about contains any truth to it whatsoever. Change over time isn't a linear progression, as your chart thing here would have us believe. It's full of stops, starts, advancement of some things over others and so forth. Now let's listen as VSC here foams at the mouth again about the Illuminati, one of the thinnest pretenses I've seen yet.
And this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is why it's so important for them to deceive people, because they have this evolution coming, this great deception at the end of time, that man can evolve into God. And this is just setting the stage for that grand deception.
You have yet to establish that there is a person or group to even do the deceiving, let alone that there is a deception going on beyond your interpretation of what your local clergyman told you during your weekly groping as a child. Clark famously said that any technology sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic. This holds true of your assertions as well. When people arrived in the Americas from Europe for the first time, each and every culture they encountered vowed that the end times had come to them. Some of them were right. What they were wrong about, to one, was that their gods had either arrived or forsaken them to the monsters.
Surely the end goal is when man has reached absolute perfection. We cannot evolve beyond perfection. And what is another name for absolute perfection other than godhood? Evolution is the exact lie from the Garden of Eden, that mankind can become perfect or godlike by our own efforts through knowledge, or science you may call it.
The achievement of perfection is an impossible goal, as we're currently engineered all back to front and upside down. Were an engineer to have turned in a piece of work as sloppy as any existing biological entity, they'd be fired on the spot. There are lots of synonyms for perfect, but godhood is not one of them. Do you not own a thesaurus, Fuel?
Through the idea of evolution, Freemasons introduced the occult idea of becoming to the masses under the veil of science, the belief that man is gradually evolving towards enlightened godhood.
Worthless word salad. No evidence, not even a really coherent thought. You don't define your new term, and immediately conflate it with evolution. You don't know that next step any more than I do, and the people you're talking about during the 18th and 19th centuries knew even less. The idea of evolution had been floating around before even Erasmus Darwin, but it took Charles to find the necessary evidence to establish it.
What many also don't know is that the basic idea of evolution did not originate with Charles Darwin. According to Mackey's Encyclopedia of Freemasonry, it originated with his grandfather, Erasmus Darwin. Dr. Erasmus Darwin was the first man in England to suggest those ideas, which were later to be embodied in the Darwinian theory by his grandson, Charles Darwin, who wrote in 1859, Origin of Species. Now Erasmus Darwin was the founder of the Masonic Lunar Society. According to author Ian Taylor, the Lunar Society was active from about 1764 to 1800, and its prominent influence continued long afterwards under the banner of the British Royal Society. The group's name owed itself to the fact that the members met monthly at the time of the full moon, which suggests some kind of link to the goddess Ashura again. The membership of this group boasted such luminaries as John Wilkinson, James Watt, Matthew Boulton, Joseph Priestley, Josiah Wedgwood, and Benjamin Franklin. These men, along with other members, were given the title Merchants of Light. Mackey's Encyclopedia of Freemasonry says, Before coming to Derby in 1788, Dr. Darwin had been made a Mason in the famous time immemorial lodge of Canongate, Kilwinning, number 2.
Excuse me, but this is all irrelevant, even to your own argument thus far. You're trying to establish that evolution was invented by the Freemasons, and all you've done is prove that one of many people that had thoughts along that line was a member. Before VSC pokes his nose in again, I want to again reiterate that a hierarchical link to the Illuminati is not supported, nor is the existence of such an extant organization. The Bavarian Illuminati was outlawed by edict in Bavaria in the 1780s, along with Freemasonry and several other similar organizations with the encouragement of Mother Church. The Bavarian Illuminati was never well enough organized to do what you suggest it still does, and imploded under its own internal strife within 10 years of its founding. It was made nearly entirely public as the 18th century came to a close, and those groups existing today that claim descent from it use that name as a recruiting tool. Not one of these so-called societies has the sort of political clout to threaten the goldfish, let alone control the world.
Boom. There it is. Granddaddy, or grandpapa or papa, he was a Mason. Okay? Do people see what's going on here? I'm telling you, evolution is a lie by the Illuminati. Who are the Illuminati? They are Freemasons. Darwin's dad. Like, come on, people. Like, did you have your coffee today? Or you got your eyes wide shut, don't you?
Just a side note, the members of the Bavarian Illuminati that were also Freemasons borrowed from the elder group's law, and membership under the third rank was considered a side project. Even that was well after the group was founded, and only then because they needed mysteries. That's the only information I could find that describes the link you insist is present, and even that suggests co-membership in parallel, not a modern hierarchical relationship. Your argument still fails, as you have not proven that the Illuminati exists in any form in the modern day, and those fragments that call themselves such have about as much ability to control the world as your average pet rock.
You're walking through life with your eyes wide shut. Come on. Evolution is a Freemasonic lie. It's really their satanic doctrine masked that man is supposed to evolve into godhood. Wake up, people.
Or 5 more minutes, Mum. No? Okay, fine. Be that way. You haven't established the existence of your god, or any gods for that matter. For there to be a Satan, your specific god must exist. You're still linking evolution to Freemasonry and thereby to your Illuminati, when the Bavarian Illuminati was obliterated nearly 2 decades before Charles Darwin was born, and was limited in the influence it had to the German provinces of the Holy Roman Empire.
You're being lied. There is a conspiracy out there. Stop being brainwashed to think that conspiracy theorists are crazy. It's actually sometimes crazy to not believe these conspiracies, because they legitimately are happening. Wake up.
Of Scotland. Sir Francis Darwin, one of the doctor's sons, was made a Mason in Tyrian Lodge number 253 at Derby in 1807 or 1808. His son Reginald was made a Mason in Tyrian Lodge in 1804. The name of Charles Darwin does not appear on the rolls of the lodge, but it is very possible that he, like Francis, was a Mason.
Absence of evidence can be and sometimes is evidence of absence. The quote on screen here is the conjecture of the person doing the writing. The way science works is that you gather some evidence surrounding an initial concept, and draw conclusions from that evidence with appropriate controls to rule out error or confirmation bias. You work with the facts you have to hand. We have observed evolution happening both in the lab and the wild. Those facts don't just go away because you want them to be a lie of the Freemasons. I don't find conspiracy conjecturists crazy. I find them frightening. That otherwise intelligent beings would deposit their tender grey matter into that maelstrom of deception and confirmation bias is beyond terrifying.
If there's any of you that have been in a Masonic family, this stuff is passed down generation to generation. It's not something that you just stop. So, although Charles Darwin, his name is not found, so we can't say 100% that he was Mason, his parents, and if you can tell, his ancestry is Masonic. So he might have been chosen by them for a special agenda, and they knew that he couldn't be known publicly as a Mason because then they would tie it back and draw the connection and expose the lie. But that's probably what happened. I mean, Daddy and Granddaddy and all the way up there, it seems like they're all Masons. So, come on, they're all Illuminati. Darwin was an Illuminati. He was in an Illuminati family. Wake up.
This is nothing but raw conjecture based on your own assumptions. That Christianity was responsible for the destruction of the original Illuminati and the persecution of all non-Christians in Europe means nothing, because history was written by the winners, right?
In 1794, Erasmus Darwin wrote a book called Zoonomia, where he expanded upon his theory of evolution. It was based on the occult concept of becoming, the gradual process of attaining godhood. Even before then, however, John Locke, a prominent Freemason and member of the British Royal Society, had taken the Hindu idea of reincarnation, which had been brought to Britain by the East India Trading Company, and formulated his own ideas on evolution based on it. The British Royal Society accepted his ideas, and they also received the support of the male members of the Darwin family at the time. 2 centuries later, this occult concept of becoming would be transmitted to Charles Darwin, and the origin of species would be born.
So much bollocks, so little time. Here is the idea of evolution as it existed before Charles went out and found the evidence of how it really worked. The two concepts on display are nearly exclusive from one another, although the seed idea of one population breeding new traits over time was solid. That they had the wrong mechanism isn't particularly surprising, as could be seen in the transition from Brett to Kepler and then to Copernicus and Newton. Darwin may have indeed seen his grandfather's books, but gathered his own evidence and drew conclusions that were much different than that of his forebears. That's called science, you mendacious cunt, and it works. If you think it doesn't, ask the people that make antibiotics, or the engineers that put the various rovers down on Mars. If the science was that far off, then none of those things could have happened.
So the evolutionary theory clearly had occult roots that predated Charles Darwin by a long way. These occult ideas were developed by Freemasons before Darwin brought it to public attention with his book. Now remember, the reason that we had deism was at least partly because people couldn't explain the origins of life.
Yes they did, and that's not necessary anymore. Thank you for playing, Fuel, and we're going to talk about the rest of your video later.
So I'll just end it here. I'll leave the link in the description section for you to check out the rest of the video, but I just wanted to highlight the part where he exposes Darwin as an Illuminati satanic Freemason who is promoting a satanic lie to brainwash the masses in the preparation for the Antichrist. This is the Vigilant Christian saying God bless each and every one of you, and as always, stay vigilant.
VOC closes with additional conjecture about the nature of Darwin and tries to poison the well in this passing shot. None of it is more than unsubstantiated bollocks, and a properly skeptical individual is always vigilant. In fact, I'm very vigilant when it comes to spotting bullshit and checking up on it. Those with bullshit to spare win up in one of these videos, in fact. Speaking of, I'm going to have Kage separate this video and the previous 2 in the series into a separate playlist. I hadn't planned on doing another of these, but it looks like I will have to. Next week, we have a new shattering pseudoscience video, and then I'll try and find you a geocentrist for the first video of 2015. Once again, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and comment, whether you like our bullshit or not. In the time since the last video was posted, the channel surpassed first 500 subscribers, then 6. At last count, it was into the 670s and still climbing. We here want to thank you for your kindness in listening to my friends and I am Iran, and for your existing and continuing support in the months and years to come. Don't forget to visit us on the social media links listed below, and feel free to follow us, ask questions, or what have you. We love reading the comments, and there have been some really interesting conversations to date. If you want to mourn the passing of internet aristocrat on the mirrored videos, feel free. But I can tell you that his absence from YouTube is all his own doing. Also, Kage had a look through his hard drives, and the only videos of his we have on hand are the ones currently up on the channel. Until next time, think critically, and always ask for evidence. See you soon.